Hi, Take the Leap listeners. Thanks for putting Ashlyn and I in your ears again today. Before we jump into this episode, we wanted to let you know that we've created a fun freebie just for you. If you've been thinking about launching your side gig or small business, we've got a free video training just for that called 9 Steps to Launch Your Business. You can sign up for that video now at www.taketheleap-today.com/webinar to get instant access. You'll also receive 2 free modules from our signature Take the Leap course. Thanks, and now back to the episode.
Take the Leap is the podcast where we get real about the roller coaster that is entrepreneurship and life. Sure, some folks make running a business look like a walk in the park, but let's be honest, it's more like a wild ride through a theme park with a lot of unexpected twists and turns.
Join us, your co-hosts, Ashlyn
and Tori,
as we spill the beans on our own real-life experiences and shine a spotlight on some amazing guests. From the highs of success stories to the lows of epic failures. And hey, we'll even throw in some cringe-worthy, laugh-out-loud, embarrassing moments for good measure.
So buckle up and tune in every Tuesday and Thursday for a dose of raw, unfiltered truth about what it's really like to chase your dreams and build a business.
Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just dipping your toes into the startup world, we've got something for everyone. Even if it's just to make you think, wow, I'm glad I didn't do what they did.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Take the Leap podcast. We're really excited for our guest today, Charles Howard. From his first line of code in Salesforce back in 2002, Charles has been on the leading edge of CRM innovation. He spent a decade inside a major medical corporation building and supporting Salesforce systems at an enterprise scale, learning firsthand what works, what doesn't, and how to get to the heart of what a business really needs. In 2013, Charles took the leap with his business partner, Jordan, walking away from a corporate life to launch OpenWaka, a consultancy rooted in doing things differently and doing them better. Tired of the status quo, they set out to offer a higher standard of quality and effectiveness in Salesforce services. Today, OpenWaka handles everything from Salesforce implementation, customization, and integration to App Exchange development, and even emerging HubSpot projects. Bootstrapped from day one, OpenWaka was built on a simple idea: stay independent to stay excellent. That independence gave Charles the freedom to hone and apply his proprietary Design Ninja methodology, a process he developed in the trenches to cut through confusion and deliver clarity, efficiency, and results. It's now a cornerstone of how OpenWaka delivers predictable, high-quality outcomes for every client they serve. The ultimate goal: to wrap up every project with a client saying, "That was great. There were a few challenges, but we worked through and got everything we needed in a way that was clear and predictable. Let's do the next one." I love a lot of the things that were in your bio, Charles, which is why I really was excited to have you on the podcast. So welcome.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you for
We're
having
excited.
But yeah, we got a lot of your Take the Leap story in the bio, but is there anything additional that you wanted to share about like why you started your journey to entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I mean, there's some more mundane details like not having to commute. Commuting takes a ridiculous amount of time. We were actually doing some math once on a marketing call of all things, and we figured out that if 10% of the people who were commuting pre-COVID didn't, then it would create an extra billion hours of time in America every year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Yeah, being able to just get ready and walk into the next room and start work has always been a pretty nice thing. But that also meant that I get to spend more time with my kids and things like that.
That's awesome. Yep. I know, but I have like a 5-second commute from room to room. So nice.
Yeah. And then the other part of it, I think, is just having ownership of a little bit of our successes. And that comes with responsibility, of course. You become responsible for making sure that things are successful. But when you do a good job, there's more of a direct benefit from it.
Yeah. There's definitely more of a payoff for sure. I definitely relate to because I had a kid like a couple years after starting my business, and I don't know how I would have had a kid and a commute like at the same time. Like I know people do it all the time, but it's not feasible for our lifestyle anymore. So yeah, just all the benefits of being an entrepreneur, to me anyway, outweigh working before. So
Yeah, yeah. I think another piece of that is that there's kind of no limit. And what
Mm-hmm.
I mean by that is that in the corporate world that I was in, there were rules and regulations and structures and HR policies and requirements and all of these things that might be good guidelines for running things at a large scale, but when it comes down to an individual person, that doesn't really determine what you can achieve. And in entrepreneurship, there's no cap.
yeah.
The only determinant of success is success. And
Mm-hmm.
there are also no rules about who can start a successful company or run a successful company. If you have an idea, a product, a service that is beneficial, valuable, and you have a profit margin, then that's it. Um, yeah, my daughter came up with 2 good business ideas last week.
I love
Yeah. Mhm.
it.
That's awesome. I know. I was talking to my mom about this recently. I feel like I should have known at some point that I was going to become an entrepreneur, because I always did, like, the lemonade stands, and even when we'd have a garage sale, I would have like some craft thing like in the corner, or like some, like, I'd have my cash register set up and I'd be like trying to sell other things. And when we did the lemonade stand, I was like, well, we have a travel trailer. We could just turn it into like a drive-through situation. And
Oh, that's cool.
I could make coffee. And my mom was like, okay, I think we're gonna get in trouble if we don't have like a permit. So maybe let's not do that. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I think being an entrepreneur, like, I've had conversations about this too, of like, I feel like it makes you like a really good parent too, because you get to like model a different way of doing things for your kids, and they get to like watch you and learn from that, and it's not just the same thing. Whether or not they become an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter. I think you learn all these different skills from being an entrepreneur that you can then pass on to your kids too. So
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. I'm actively trying to pull them into things I'm working on and show
Mhm.
them that different way so that they don't grow up thinking that they need to be locked into, the status quo. And
Mm-hmm.
I also want them to know that their ideas have value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really important lesson. Yeah.
Hmm.
I love
Mm.
that.
Yeah.
That's so
Well,
awesome.
what piece of advice would you give yourself, like knowing what you know now, like when you first took that leap into entrepreneurship?
Have faith.
Oh,
When I took the leap, I had 2-year-old twins and a
wow.
house.
Oh.
And, so arguably it was the wrong time, but I think it was the right time, the way that things turned out. I did a project for 3 months and then there was a gap, and
Mhm.
it really started to question things. But, if you do good work, it leads to more work.
Yeah.
It leads to referrals, it leads to follow ups. And so I've grown to have faith in that process and to not worry in the time in between and spend that time building infrastructure and
Mhm.
building materials and building systems and basically doing all the back end work so that then when the actual billable work comes in, you're better prepared for it.
That is such a great idea. And I think something that entrepreneurs often forget is that, like, the downtime is still valuable to be doing something and not to get so distracted by, like, there's not more money coming in, there's not a lead coming in. Like, there's still so much that you can do to support, like you said, the infrastructure of how the business operates during that time as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And logistically, I'd say be prepared to float for, I don't know, in different businesses, the cycles are different, but
Mhm.
there could be a company that really wanted me to work on something early on, but the project might just get delayed by a month.
Yeah.
And they still want me to work on it. It's still coming in, but you have to stretch a little bit. So, um, yeah, I'd say have money put away to be able to float a little bit,
Mhm.
especially in the beginning until you get some
Yeah,
momentum. Yeah.
Totally.
And
Well,
even
such
so,
a Oh,
Oh,
God.
go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, especially for technology projects that require, so much, especially when you're like not internal, because what you were saying in the corporate, like all these rules and regulations are, I see like, hey, we could do this tech thing that would make, 300 different stores operate much more efficiently. But, our big daddy parent company said it's not the good time right now. And we want to do this budget for, this other thing. And you're just like, but it could make people's jobs easier. And this other big
Mhm.
budget thing is like not, the apples to oranges doesn't really make sense there. But
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. And our sales cycle tends to be anywhere between like 3 weeks and a year. So
Yeah.
you have to
Yeah.
just, and we do consulting work. We've,
Mhm.
so those kind of sales cycles can be specific to consulting, and there's always other factors, but you just have to be able to write it out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And I think it's also just a good reminder as an entrepreneur that not like just because you did really well last year or really well last month doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be the same or more this month. Like it's a roller coaster. It's an
Mhm.
experience, it's a journey, and there are so many things that are just so outside of your control, many external factors. Um, and you just have to be willing to go through it, and I think that's kind of the beauty and also the stress of being an entrepreneur. But when you're looking at entrepreneurs in like other podcasts or online on Instagram, like I feel like most people only talk about the really high successes and like the really high
Mm.
highs, and often we don't talk about those lows, and I think that's also an important thing to talk about and to remember, because it's the reality of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think as we've gone along and gained more experience in running the company and doing this, we started to recognize cycles.
Yep.
So the end of the year, nobody wants to start projects.
Yep.
This is how it
Nobody's
is.
around. Yeah.
Yep.
And then there's a little bit of a hangover after the 1st of January, and then suddenly this like third week in January, everybody wakes up and they all want to do
Ah.
stuff. So and with a product company or something like that, it would be different cycles, but there are still cycles. So if you can
Mhm.
identify what those are and
That
prepare
helps.
for them, then you're in a
Yeah.
good position.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
And as a marketer, I've got to say, when you have those slow cycles, make sure you're, going through your brand and updating your website and checking the links.
Yeah.
That's what I like to do, and that's what I do for clients. And yeah, sometimes you're going to have slow cycles, so take advantage of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. I have our last regular question before we jump into the hot seat. And so, what's your why? Why do you choose entrepreneurship? Why do you continue to do this? Especially now, talking about the feast or famine cycle out there, too.
Um, a couple of reasons. I really enjoy developing good solutions. I
Mhm.
really like solving problems and really solving problems. And so that's the core of what we do at Open Waka is good solutions and problem solving for people. And in a larger environment, in a company or a corporate environment, you don't have control over the things that you need in order to ensure that that's done well. There are so many other factors and other influences and things that come into it. Um, so within our company, we have that control. We can make sure that things are run well, that the right questions are asked at the right time, that we treat our clients well, we communicate with them the right way, and we can produce really good results. Um, I also enjoy the flexibility of it. I enjoy, it's kind of a double-edged sword. I enjoy being able to just say, yeah, I'm going to take that week off. I can line up all my stuff, make sure things are covered, and just take a week off if I want to. Um, but then I also tell people that my boss is a jerk and he makes me work a lot more than I want to because in order to take that week off, you have to make sure everything's squared away. So I enjoy the flexibility of it. I enjoy the idea that I could get into a really high paid job hourly somewhere and I could churn away, but there's only a certain number of hours in a year. And so this is also a way for me to generate more wealth and than I could as an individual person, like in any given job. Um, it also is a way for me to create opportunities for people to work in a really good place. with a good culture and where they can have the same kind of flexibility and where they enjoy the things that they're working on, the people they're working with, and ultimately they're working on successful projects, which then is satisfying at the end of it. So, yeah, I'd say that's it.
I love that. We had a guest recently who said that that was one of the things they valued as well as like not only like the opportunity they're creating for themselves, but that
Mhm.
next layer of people that they're able to impact. And it's so cool that that is, where the journey that we're seeing many entrepreneurs take. Because I mean, this podcast is designed for like the people who are planning to take the leap, but it's like important to remember that there is stuff that comes after that.
Yeah.
And there is
Yeah,
more to it than just your own, you get in that year one and you're like, oh my God, I made so much more money than I ever did at a regular W-2 job. And you're like, oh my God, to make more, I have to choose to hire people or do some, do some different things around this. And it is, I feel like entrepreneurship is the most fun puzzle problem to solve, especially if you have that mindset that you are a problem solver. You will not be without having more things to puzzle on and play with in this, time of doing it.
yeah. And I was talking to a colleague of mine this morning, actually, and saying that I kind of have a soft spot for people who are very motivated and who are problem solvers, kind
Mhm.
of regardless of their education or their background or their years of experience. I like to give people like that an opportunity to just turn up the volume and see what they can do. As an example, one of our developers has a master's degree in psychology,
Wow.
and he's a great programmer. He's
Mhm.
a good problem solver. One of the best Salesforce developers I know. I don't know if he even has a degree, and he started off as a musician and got into it because he needed to build his website. And then he was like, "Oh, this is really cool," and just kept going.
Mhm.
Tech is cool. Yeah. I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
I like having a space that creates that potential for people.
Mhm.
I love that because you can't really find that much in the corporate world in most and the thing is that if companies were to actually sit down and think about that and actually give people a chance, like they would have so much more creativity on their teams. They would, they would solve a lot more problems a lot quicker. Their bottom line would be impacted in a very positive way. But it's many companies are just too rigid to do that. And so it's nice that there are companies that are being created for the people who don't want to be an entrepreneur, who want a W-2 job, but really want a positive and encouraging place to work, and they actually have the opportunity to be at that table and come up with ideas and have their voices heard. It's really
Yeah,
nice. I'm hoping that that culture really changes because of the types of people who are starting companies like that now.
yeah. And one of the benefits that we see from it, from a company perspective, is that means that all of the people on our team are people who you can throw into a complex situation and they thrive.
Mhm.
And they um yeah, they're very self-motivated and autonomous and able to really handle whatever's going on. Yeah.
Those skills are so much more valuable, I think, than experience.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah,
anybody can get experience, anybody can learn. But yeah,
yeah, yeah. I think of experience as kind of the toolbox that you have, but just because you have a hammer doesn't mean you know how to swing it.
right.
Mhm.
And the approach that you take is really the big question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, we're going to pivot just a little bit. We're going to go into our hot seat questions, which they're really just an excuse for us to ask a bunch of random questions.
Okay. Very nice.
It's really what they're about. So I always ask this question to everybody to kick it off, and that is, what is the best and or worst advice that you've received in your career?
Honestly, I think the worst advice that I've seen that I took to heart for a while was a speaker at a conference who said that basically if you want to be successful, then you just sit down and you work and you just work. You just,
Yeah.
churn out 16-hour days. We're taking a much different approach the last several years. And honestly, I got burned out at one point.
Yeah.
And you're not effective if you're burned out.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So it's more about doing the right things at the right time than doing a lot of things all the time.
Mhm.
I love that.
Mhm.
I like to compare it to like building furniture from IKEA. Like there's, you could try to figure it out without all the instructions, but there are certain things that need to happen at certain times in certain ways to put that stupid thing together. So don't try to just have it happen all at once.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a bad recipe.
Come up with a plan that's actually feasible that allows some time for downtime, rest, maintenance. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've been guilty of that burnout cycle. Well, and I think it was just so ingrained in us, as I was a W-2 employee, like that's how I operated. And so then when I started my own business, I just transferred over like that same process
Mhm.
and that same skill set. And then I got burnt out really quickly in my business and then had to kind of back up and figure out, okay, I can't keep operating like this. I have to operate differently because I'm making really big decisions that are going to impact, so many different things. I'm not just showing up to work every day. So yeah, it's a lesson that I think all of us need to learn. But
Yeah, definitely.
and life is so much more than what we do, for work.
Mhm.
We have more value than that.
Yeah. And I don't know if you mind if I plug somebody else's
Oh, go for it.
sort of project on here, but my friend Dominic Stanecki started a thing a couple of years ago that he calls the timionaire concept or idea. And the idea is instead of being a millionaire, being a timionaire, having all of the time in life, because time is really the only thing you have.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's the most precious resource.
Resource.
So structuring your life in a way where you can still be financially successful, but also, successful in the time that you have in your life to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. I love
Yeah.
that so much. I'm going to look that up now.
Yeah. Definitely look it up. It's really good stuff.
That's
Mhm.
awesome. All right, pivoting away from that, given that you work in the world of technology, how do you and your team keep up with all the new tech and tools that come to market, especially stuff that now integrates and connects with Salesforce?
A lot of reading, a lot of research. I remember it was probably 10 years ago or so, with each new Salesforce release, I would actually go and read all of the release notes. And when the release notes grew beyond 900 pages,
You're
um,
like, no.
I started being more selective about what I was researching.
Fair.
Um, one good thing, though, which I tell a lot of people who are getting into tech, is that there are really only about like maybe four, arguably five different types of like programming languages or languages out there.
Mhm.
So if you learn a scripting language, you learn an object-oriented language, you learn a markup language, you learn a database querying language, then any new iteration of those language types that you run into is going to be similar enough that you already have a pretty good leg up on learning a new thing, right?
Nice.
So, for example, I learned Perl scripting, and then I picked up Ruby, and then I picked up JavaScript, and the gaps like Perl was a learning experience, but then the gaps to the next ones were much smaller. Same thing with integrations. The concept of moving data from one system to another is really something that's been around for decades. And so within that paradigm, if you understand the principles in that paradigm, then any new tool like Zapier or whatever you're using is just a little bit different tool set to get that same thing done.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's great. That's what I tell people whenever they're like, do you know how to use this, or this, email marketing software? And I'm like, no, but I'm pretty sure it does most of the things that any of these other 70 that I've learned do.
It always makes me laugh on job, and I get there are some fields and softwares and things that people do need to know how to use for particular jobs, but especially when it comes to marketing in particular or customer service and stuff like that, I feel like having in the job description must know Salesforce, must know this particular email tool, must know this. I'm like, well, do you really need to know? Like, you don't. You can learn it. It's probably very similar to the one that you were using at your job before. There, we're all used to technology at this point.
Mhm.
We should be able to adapt and pick up new tech fairly quickly, like,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. I'd say it's much more important to understand the fundamental principles of a drip campaign than it is to
Mm-hmm.
understand
Agreed.
exactly where the button is to push in any
Uh-huh.
given tool, right?
Agreed.
And that's what Google is for, and YouTube, and tutorials, and
Mm-hmm.
Stack Exchange,
Yeah.
is to figure out where that button is. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Plus the
It's so
knowledge
funny.
base and the tool too. I
Yeah.
mean,
yeah, yeah.
it all comes with that.
What
Yeah.
if
Or
you
sometimes they actually have good UIs, and like it's obvious where the button
Right.
is. That's kind of nice too.
Yeah, so
If we
fair.
could just tell that to every UI designer, please make it almost exactly as the same as the thing that we used before.
That would be
Because yeah.
great.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so similar tech question here. So obviously you work with Salesforce and sometimes HubSpot and CRM tools. And we also recently had a conversation with someone about CRMs and kind of their impact on business. So I just want to kind of get your thoughts on using CRM for small businesses. A lot of things that I hear from small businesses, they're like, "Oh, well, we're too small. We don't need a CRM, or we don't need these tech tools to like manage our business for us because we've been doing things just fine." I guess what was your opinion on that, and what would you, I guess, say to clients or people who kind of give you that feedback?
I think it's valid, honestly. Um, I've seen CRMs leveraged very well by very small companies
Mhm.
who need efficiency. Not every company needs that level of efficiency,
Hmm.
but I'd say, especially if you want to grow, when you're getting ready to hit a growth curve, you need to get your systems in place and structured beyond just like using spreadsheets or a notepad or whatever. Um, and that's where a CRM system comes in.
Yeah.
I'd also say that Salesforce isn't necessarily the right CRM system for every single instance, which is a little bit of why we are branching into HubSpot development, because for in certain cases when people just need to run the front end of things of the sales process, HubSpot is a good tool for them. But we have been doing more and more projects where we're doing HubSpot integrated with Salesforce because they need more extensive backend CRM capabilities with Salesforce. So, um, yeah, I mean, our Salesforce instance is not huge, but we are leveraging it for everything it's worth to automate things to make our lives easier. And I would also say that the math that we've started doing around that has less to do with how many dollars are we going to spend on automating something or making it easier, and more to do with um, clearing problems, just making sure that something isn't a problem. It's not a
Hmm.
manual thing that you have to do. And that's probably relevant for small companies, especially because if you don't automate things and you don't get them into a system, then they might be small, but there's going to be 100 of them. And
Hmm.
you can really only handle 50. So, yeah, we're much more focused on making sure that, taking things that are a problem and just making them not a problem anymore. And that's worth every penny and every minute that we spend doing it. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's all that like time savings, and then also the anytime you can do some automations, like I've seen people before where they like transpose numbers, or like you've been entering things wrong, and now the phone number for that, like a 503 for the Oregon phone numbers and a 530,
Yeah.
very different area codes, and that could just mess up your entire system, all your data, with one number transposed very
Yeah.
easily.
And there's sort of the headspace and distraction question to me too,
Hmm.
because if you are trying to switch between 100 manual things that you have to do, that task switching has a cost to it, right?
Hmm.
In terms of your ability to focus and just your energy levels, your ability to think. Um, and so, especially if you're an entrepreneur in a small company, you need some of that load taken off as much as you can. in order to maintain your ability to see things at a larger scale, make broader decisions and things. So,
Tori and I both know we hate admin tasks, but and it's also the thing that happens last because it just doesn't. It's not urgent and important until it really is urgent and important.
yeah.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, we do like to ask people this. What is the origin of the name of your company?
So we started off actually thinking that we might be a software development company. And so we started off with our software is better than your software. And we used the acronym for that, which is OSIBTYS, OSIBTYS, right? And then one of the original founders was like, that's kind of hard to remember. It's a mouthful. Let's come up with something different. So I was in a reading group with a bunch of other software developers that were developing medical technology at the big medical company I worked at. And we ended up reading books like Modern Multi-Threading and a bunch of really technical stuff. And so we'd end up actually reading lines of code. And in code, you use like the less than greater than symbols for things. And instead of saying less than greater than, they would say open waka, close waka. And it's waka 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 like Pac-Man
Like
kind of.
Pac-Man, yep.
Yeah. Or it'd be open bracket, close bracket, or open curly, close curly, depending on the kind of braces you're talking about. So I thought, open walk is cool, and it doesn't really mean anything yet, but it's kind of memorable. It's easier than OSIBTYS. And so we registered that as a DBA name, and that's the company now. Yeah.
I love that.
OSIBTYS sounds like the next thing that I'm going to take for heartburn or like some other medication.
There's like an Ozempic connection there.
Exactly. It's out. Yeah. I mean, coming from the medical side of things, it could work really well for pharma, but yeah.
That's really funny. I love that. I think that's
That
one of my
funny.
favorite origin stories I've heard.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna wrap it up with a final question, and we're asking this to everybody in season 2 right now, and that is, what song or album is on your playlist right now on repeat? We're definitely creating a playlist. So
Okay. I'd say Red Hot Chili Peppers Stadium Arcadium.
Oh yeah, good choice.
Yeah. When that came out, I put it on, and you can just listen straight through the whole thing. And then a few weeks ago, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that album. I want to go back to it.
mm-hmm.
That definitely is an era of music that I haven't gone back to. So thank you for that reminder, because that was a great album.
Yeah.
I feel like that's when they came back alive again. Like, not that they got one anywhere, but that was like their big reintroduction of like, we're still a thing after many, many years. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
There are just so many great songs on there, and they all tie together really nicely. So.
Awesome. Well, we've come to the end of our time. Is there anything else that you wanted to share that we did not cover through our questions today?
I don't think so. I think we got a lot through the bio, so that was a great introduction. I appreciate the treatment that you gave it, and yeah, it's been a good conversation.
Awesome.
Thank you for being on.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for listening. If you want to look at Charles and Open Waka, we will have everything in our show notes. If you have a recommendation for a future guest, or if you have questions for us or any of our guests, you can feel free to send us an email at aloha@taketheleap-today.com, send us a DM on Instagram, or check out our brand spanking new website. And with that, we will leave you until next time. Thanks so much for being on.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Take the Leap podcast. We hope you found useful takeaways you can apply to your entrepreneurial journey. Subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and keep in touch and follow us on Instagram. If you have business questions, shoot us a direct message or leave us a comment. We'll try to cover it in an upcoming episode. And visit our website, taketheleap-today.com, for more resources like our online course that accompanies this podcast.